1 home cook, 2 prep days, 3 courses, 12 components. After all the hard work that I've put into preparing these dishes, tonight's the night I put them all together for me and my wife Katie for our at-home date night. Again, I can't thank Chef Wylie Dufresne and photographer Eric Metzger enough for allowing me to showcase their hard work in the past 3 episodes of Hard Boiled Down. I hope I didn't let you guys down one bit. Without further ado, let's get cooking. The first course for our WD-50 at-home date night was shrimp noodles with smoked yogurt and nori powder. Out of the 9 components I prepped the prior 2 days, over half of them were just for this dish. It was a nice balance of simple and complex techniques employed in the kitchen. Each new technique learned gave me insight in how I can become a better home cook. The lone component left over for me to make? Prawn crackers. They're kind of like pork rinds, but fishier. These bad boys can expand to nearly 8 times their size in just under a couple minutes. After a quick deep fry in canola oil, they're dried off, crushed up, and seasoned with a little bit of sea salt and homemade tomato powder. Those go to the side, onto the shrimp noodles. In a large sauté pan, some butter and shrimp oil are heated up over medium-high heat. The noodles get tossed around for about 3 to 4 minutes before plating, just enough to get them reheated. To start my presentation, I paint, more like smeared the smoked yogurt onto the plate, plop the noodles on top, and garnish with prawn cracker and nori powder. Lo and behold, 1 dish down. Now comes the big test, seeing if my wife likes it.
Yeah? That's really good.
Oh, wow. I can't believe I made this.
Yeah, you did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
The smoke in the yogurt's really cool. Because it's with the shrimp, it gives me that like smoked salmon vibe.
I didn't even think the technique would work with the smoked yogurt because the first time I tried doing the smoking, I failed with the cheese. But the second time around, it's just like, give it a shot, give it patience. First you don't succeed, try again.
Right.
And that second time around, I got success out of it. Okay, I've held out long enough. Here is how I was successful with the smoker. First off, smaller pieces of aluminum foil and a little bit more wood chips. Place that in the bottom of my pot, my steamer basket on top, secure a tight-fitting lid on the pot, turn on the stove, and let it do its work for 8 minutes. Smoke will form. Once that's done, in goes my ice cubes, and on top of that, my yogurt. Close up. 3 minutes later, I have smoked yogurt. While I did the technique properly, I did suffer an absence of intelligence removing the yogurt. Like I showed you. That's better. Add a little paprika, let that rest for an hour. Flavors will infuse for this dish. Now back to Katie. How did you first come into contact with WD?
Top Chef.
Okay.
Early seasons of Top Chef Wylie. Popped in a couple times. And I always found the chefs on that show who did the molecular gastronomy stuff to be the most interesting to me because it was the most out-of-the-box cooking. It was something I'd never seen before. It was something I couldn't envision the taste of when they were describing what the dish was. Because they're using all these techniques that I was completely unfamiliar with and creating all these textures that were just like completely out of my realm of even grasping. So I would read more up on him whenever he would go on the show, and then Joe and Monica surprised me for my birthday that one year by taking me there. It was, I could never have anticipated what it would have been like, but it was absolute perfection in that everything was delicious and new and completely unfamiliar to me. This is really impressive, especially given that you don't have any of the training background that someone like Wylie does.
No.
And you were still able to create noodles out of shrimp. Like, that's incredible.
Mm. I mean, just for me, creating noodles out of a protein that I'm usually used to having in like a stir fry or in a cocktail, and smoking my own yogurt on my own stovetop, that was something I've never done before. Two things I've never done before. Difficult ones at that too.
Yeah. I think the coolest thing about it is not just the fact that it's something you've never done before, but it's something that you never even would have thought of doing before. So what are your thoughts on it?
Great combination of flavors. From a taste standpoint, I mean, I get the whole smoked salmon deal now with how you have the shrimp interplaying with the paprika. But yeah, I also get a little bit of vibes of the ocean too, with the nori powder and the prawn cracker on top. It had this freshness to it. I didn't think I would have that final process out of all the steps that I took. I mean, even just the cooking portion of it, that's a lot of work just for something that we consumed in 10 minutes. Moving on to the second course, scallops with pine needle udon, grapefruit dashi, and Chinese broccoli. This was a lesson in building complex flavors from simple ingredients, many of which I've never used before, or again in a long time. It gave me a newfound appreciation on the building blocks for many great dishes and the possibilities of what home cooks can do if we can put a little bit of extra time and effort in the kitchen instead of watching kitchen-related programming. Okay, getting preachy. Talk about the food, AJ. The scallops get some salt and cayenne pepper before getting bagged and immersed in a 122-degree water bath for about 10 to 12 minutes. This will cook the scallops to a consistent inside temperature before going into a small sauté pan with some more butter and subjected to basting and searing. Now back at the cutting board, I cut up some Chinese broccoli, known in Cantonese as kailan. The stems will get steamed in a microwave for 3 minutes, while the leaves will serve as garnish, along with some thinly sliced radish. While the scallops are still basting, I can throw my pine needle udon into the boiling pot of hot water. This is the critical part of the entire meal, because everything needs to be hot and ready for plating at the exact same time. One small misstep and the entire composition will suffer. When I feel everything is good, I plate my udon, the scallops, along with some Chinese broccoli, the radish, and some of the heated up grapefruit dashi at the very top. Finish it with a little bit of the chopped Chinese broccoli and some pine oil, and my second course is complete. Let's see what Katie has to say about it. I really want to know how the udon turned out.
Ooh, I like that grapefruit. What is the green on top?
Chinese broccoli, kailan. I know if I wanted to do something crazy out of that cookbook, I didn't want it to go over the top with protein. So that's why I chose shrimp and scallop.
I like that.
Because there's enough complex stuff already in everything else. You know, like even the dashi alone was a 2-day affair.
Yeah, dashi is complicated.
But I'm proud that I was able to get such a clean dashi.
Dashi is one of those things that you hear a lot. You hear people talk about it a lot, but they never actually explain what it is, other than it's raw.
Yeah, I've only heard about it before in the past, but cooking my own based off his recipe, just understanding how you're building complex flavors, just using simple ingredients. I mean, I know we've talked about that before.
Yep.
I've seen it before, I've done it before, but nothing like this where you're talking about seaweed, you're talking about fish flakes and grapefruit. And you get something that's this elegant. The one thing I didn't do is I did not add soy sauce to it.
Why?
I forgot.
Oh, okay.
For my first attempt at making udon by scratch, I'm not entirely disappointed by it. And I love udon noodle to begin with. But it was tough.
What was tough about it?
just a process of eating it out.
Where you were stepping on it?
I think the one thing I didn't do is I didn't give it enough time to rest. It recommended a minimum of 3 hours, but preferably overnight.
How long did you rest it?
About 5 hours.
That's fine. It's not like bread where you're trying to get it to rise.
I got another chewy bit.
Chewy bit of what?
Udon.
Undercooked?
Yeah. I think that was just the fact that my technique where I stored the noodles bunched up together. I think that's where it screwed me. From the time I started doing research on this project and committing to doing a 4-part series, I thought this was just going to be, it's going to be just a home cooking show of me showing what I know what I'm doing, but
just like step-by-step cooking something?
Dump and pour. Dump and stir, excuse me. But every time when I learn something new, every time when I learn a new technique in the kitchen, a new scientific compound that I put into my cooking, every article I've read, podcast, YouTube video, interview, anything I get my hands on, especially now with coronavirus, it's made me rethink about food going forward.
Yeah. The closer attention you pay to the food that you're making and that you're buying, as you're forced to focus on it because you're making this show, it's going to make you think about it.
Yeah. While I digest on my thoughts and the first 2 courses, it's time for the root beer chew. This one was the complex gelatin dish fudge cross I had to create from scratch, so I was nervous about seeing how this one turned out. The morning of, I removed it from the fridge to find this.
Oh, baby. Yes!
It may not have the same refinement as what I had 3 years ago, but I only hope it tastes the same. All right, shall we?
I was afraid it was going to hurt my teeth.
Yeah.
Because usually I'm not a fan of cold on my teeth. But it's not bad at all. That's really interesting. You like it? It brought you back?
Yeah. Out of everything, this brought me back.
Yeah, it's a perfect nightcap. I like the bits of cherry in it.
Yeah. You definitely get the taste of root beer, but the cherry kind of gives it like a nice balance.
It kind of has a cherry vanilla vibe too. I'm blown away. You did a phenomenal job on everything.
It's a lot of hard work.
I know. It just means that now when we do go out for dinners at nicer restaurants and stuff like that, you'll have more of an appreciation for the amount of work that actually goes into bringing the food to your plate, you know?
I definitely have a newfound respect, not only for chefs and restaurateurs who do this for a living, but also when we go deeper into it, the supply chain that gets the food to these places, especially the farms, fresh produce, fresh meat, all that stuff, and just how much that supply chain has been damaged by the coronavirus.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. those sorts of businesses work on very tight margins.
Mm-hmm.
Farms and restaurants. And when you're not able to get buyers or consumers, a lot of places just aren't going to be able to make it.
Yeah. It's going to be scary to see how things end up after all this subsides.
I mean, you're starting to see the places that are never going to reopen.
Yeah.
And that's only going to keep happening.
I hope the ones that do survive come back stronger than ever.
I hope the ones that don't survive bounce back and find something else.
I think for us, I definitely think doing our part, whenever something like this happens again, finding those local farms to help them out
Mm-hmm.
and give them our business from time to time just so they have that little extra.
Mm-hmm. I don't do any, I never, ever, ever eat at chains unless I'm forced to because of circumstances. But I would much rather support someone who is a local business, who is able to use like their local suppliers and keep the community fed, than put money in the pockets of Mr. Chick-fil-A.
Especially now when you're seeing the corporate side of it taking a hit with constant issues regarding outbreaks.
Mm-hmm.
Being in close quarters, shutting it down, and as a result, the food supply is getting hammered. As a result, we're paying more.
Mm-hmm. But you know what? I think that a lot of that stuff we should be paying more for. The reason it's so cheap is because it's produced in an unsafe way, where people are forced to be stuck together, and the animals that we're eating are forced to be housed stuck together with very little room for them to move around. Yeah, like just unnatural practices that can impact the food that you're actually receiving in the end.
Yeah,
And I think we're worse off for it. I think, yes, we are able to mass produce enough food that we can feed the country, but somehow that still isn't happening, and there's still kids that are going hungry.
we care more about keeping a few extra bucks in our pocket. But I think that can be done in other areas. When it comes to survival for us to keep our bodies fit, I think it's worth spending the few extra bucks.
Mm-hmm. Well, you and I also have the means for that, right?
Yeah.
We're not a single parent working 3 jobs to try and feed our family.
No.
So we can afford the organic broccoli, right? We don't really have to think twice about paying an extra $1 for it.
No.
But
a single mother like that,
yeah, when you're talking about, you know, barely bringing in enough money to feed yourself and you have to feed a whole family, you know, how do you do it?
I want to be able to at least find ways to do that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Because I think everyone deserves that.
Mm-hmm. They do. But it's tough because it's not a priority for a lot of people.
No. But it's going to be a priority for me now.
Well, that's good. That's fantastic. Keep that. It's very admirable.
Yeah. You got to set an example anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Hard Boiled Down came about because my original idea for a content creation idea for graduate school was rejected. At the time I was hurt by it, but my professor implored me to go outside of my comfort zone because it's the only way people can actually learn. Not only learn about themselves, but learn about what they're capable of doing. And over the last 4 weeks, I've learned that my culinary knowledge has barely scratched the surface. I did 3 complicated dishes. Granted, they were from a recipe book, but there are things I've never done before. It's that type of knowledge that I love to learn and eventually pass on to my wife, my future family, if we ever have one, my friends. It's a journey that I can't wait to see what becomes of it in due time. I know for one thing, it's going to be pretty fun along the way. And with that, I think I'm done. Thank you for watching this episode of Hard Boiled Down. If you enjoyed today's content, please like the video and share it with your friends. Join the official YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Fresh content will be arriving later this year. Until then, stay healthy and stay hungry.